Welcome back to JayFix. Today I've got my 99 Prelude in front of me and we're going to do a bit of an upgrade on the brakes. We're going to change out the rotors and the brake pads for performance parts. So if that sounds interesting, stay tuned. Righto, so the first thing we want to do is turn the steering full lock to the left so we've got easy access to the brakes. Okay, so now that we've got the steering on full left lock to give us easy access to the brakes, we can start taking the calipers off. But before we do that, I want to show you guys what I'm installing on here today. So we've got the slotted discs. They're painted up, so it gives them that extra, well, looks a lot better if you ask me. For the Prelude that we're dealing with, the 5th gen Prelude, that's the part number you'll need. So let's have a bit of a look at them, see what I can't wait to put these on, I really can't. So let's get stuck in. Okay, so to get these calipers off, we're dealing with two 17mm bolts, and they're up, if they're anything like mine, they're going to be up pretty tight. So 17mm, and we'll just get stuck in. As I suspected, they're up pretty tight. So I'm just going to grab another spanner, put it on the end, give us a bit more of an extension and see how that goes. No good so far. Put some more penetrating oil on it. I forgot to mention that before. It's best that you soak it in penetrating oil for as long as possible. I'm going to do that again, let it sit aside, and I'll see you back here in about 10 minutes. Okay guys, I've just got under the car just to give you a bit of an idea of what we're dealing with. The two bolts that we're talking about here to get the actual caliper off, this one here, there's another one up the top here, both 17. We need to get them off to get the actual calipers off. And all I can say is just soak them as much as you can in penetrating fluid and give it your best. Alright guys, I'm back here, get it about 10-15 minutes of soaking time with the penetrating fluid, so let's give it a crack. Yes. That's the top one. Okay, let's give this bottom one a go, see if it's as good as the top one, hopefully. Oh, wow, that one was actually a lot easier than the top one, so that's really good. Now it's just a matter of taking these out and we can remove our caliper. Okay, so I've taken one of the bolts out that hold the calipers on. I've left the top one in because what I want to do is now take this off so we can put this in a place where we won't damage the brake lines. So it's a 12mm, so we'll take that off now. You might have noticed too already I've soaked that in penetrating oil as well, so okay, now that's out. Make sure you put your screw back in so you don't lose it. Always good practice. Okay, so now that we've taken this adapter, well, bracket off, we're at a stage now we've only got one bolt, which is this top bolt holding the whole caliper on. What we're going to do is grab some wire, take this last bolt out, and then tie this wire around here and around the suspension somewhere, just so it's not holding, not putting any pressure on this. We don't want any torn brake lines or anything. That's the last thing we want. So we'll go ahead and do that. When taking this off too, you might get a bit of resistance brakes and that, but shouldn't be too bad. You should be able to get it off reasonably easy. In fact, it should hold itself on there when you take this bolt out, but which it has. So we'll grab our caliper off. Okay. And with our wire, let's feed it through, up and around the suspension somewhere. It doesn't really matter where. Alright guys, now that that's taken care of, we can actually start looking at getting these rotors off. So there are 2 retaining screws here that we need to get rid of before we can actually take the rotor off. So let's get stuck into that. Today I'm going to be using it like an impact screwdriver. Pretty simple. Hit it with the end with a hammer and it'll loosen those screws off pretty easily. So let's give that a go. Okay, so that's 1. And 2. They weren't too bad. Just take those out. Okay, once they're out, we can actually have a look at hammering this off, because I dare say it's not going to come off by itself. No, I didn't think so. You could use a hammer. Extreme. I'm going to use a rubber mallet today. Give it a few hits, it should come off. There we go. That's it. Now if you have a look at the hub assembly there is a little bit of dirt on there, which is going to have to be cleaned up. So we'll be back to do that in a tick. Okay, so I'm going to use today a wire brush, something similar to this. I reckon these are really good, the thin ones, so you can get into all the nooks and crannies. Also a good idea to do your wheel nuts as well, because, well, in this case they're actually pretty dirty, so good idea to clean them up. But you want this surface to be as clean as possible for when you're putting your new rotors on. I forgot to mention too, always wear your safety protection. Eyeglasses important. Righto, so once all that's sanded back, it's a good idea to give it a bit of a hit with some brake clean, and hit it with a rag as well, just to make sure you get everything off there before we start mounting. Okay, that in my opinion is well and truly clean enough, so let's get stuck in and put the new one on. Can't wait. Righto, before we install these rotors, we need to clear a protective coating that's on these. Best thing to use is brake clean, but being a painted surface in the centre there, I don't really want to put brake clean straight on there, so what I'm going to do is spray it on a rag and do it that way. I think it'll be much better on the paint, so let's do that. Now, I should have used a wider rag to show you that the stuff does come off, but take my word for it. You can actually see it on there. Just make sure it's off. Same with the other side. There we are. Now we're ready to put these on. Let's do it. Okay, so now that you've got your rotors, you'll find that they'll only go on one way because of these retaining screws there. So just line them up and we're looking better already. Alright, so we're all tightened down on the rotor side. Just a matter of now putting the brake calipers back on. Now I've thought about this for a bit, and in my opinion I think I'm going to just put the brakes back on as they are and then change the pads out after I've got the caliper back on. I think that might be easiest way to go instead of trying to hold it and risk tearing a brake line or something like that. So then it's just a matter of putting your screws back in, and then we can change out the brake pads. Now I am going to use a bit of Loctite on these Caliper bolts. I think it's a bit important, so just put a bit on. I don't need much. That's probably all you need. Do that for both bolts. Well, I don't know about you, but they're looking pretty amazing right now. Next job, change those brake pads out. See you back here soon. Alright, now it's time to tackle these brakes. Put some new brake pads in. We're going to need a 14mm spanner straight up. And we need to take this bolt out here if we can. I'll say if we can because they're probably going to be tight. They always are. And this one's no exception. Alright, so we'll grab a spanner, another spanner, 14mm, another one on top of it. Okay, so these bolts are indeed tight. Didn't think they were that tight, but I actually managed to snap one of my spanners. Now this is a cheap spanner, don't get me wrong, and I was swinging off it quite a bit, but this gives you a bit of an idea how tight these are. So let's go get another spanner. A bit more penetrating fluid, can't hurt. Now this is a bit better quality spanner, this one, so we should be right. Let's give it a go. That is being very difficult. See you back in 10. I'm going to give it a bit of a soak and see how we go. Righto guys, I've actually come back the next day because we had a bit of bad weather yesterday, so that's had plenty of time to soak, so we should be able to get that bolt out in theory, so let's give it a crack. There we go. That was up extremely tight. I dare say someone's gone to town with the Loctite on that. And they have. That's why we had so much trouble getting it off, but we'll clean that up. Now it's a matter of just got to dip this flipped up so we can get our pads out. Alright, what we might do is we'll just take this out. Sit him up here out of the way, and hopefully it doesn't fall down. That'll just give us access to our pads here. Now, something to note with these pads too is they're actually different. So when you go to install your new ones, you'll find that they are different. And I'll show you the difference on the new ones actually. It's a good idea to try and get some brake clean. There's the other one that's slightly different anyway. A wear indicator there. You can see there's quite a bit of meat left on these, but having new rotors, I thought we might as well put new pads on it at the same time. So, okay, because I don't want to get any brake clean on our new rotors because of the paint, I'm just going to get a rag, spray that with some brake clean, and just clean it up as best as we can. Especially where our pads and that are going to go, so we're going to get a little bit in there. Okay, so for you guys at home, that's the part number for the new brake pads. I was going to get some performance pads, but I could not find them. It's a little bit disappointing, but anyway. Alright, so these are the pads that we're going to be installing today. And you can tell the difference easily. One's got the wear indicator on it, the other one doesn't. You'll also notice that there's a little knob thing there. So let's get these installed. Alright, so we're at a stage now where we can install our brake pads. Before we do though, we're just going to put some copper anti-seize on each of these ends, just to make sure they slide evenly, so let's go do that. Then we can just put them straight in. So just a tad, you don't need a lot of it. And then we can just install them. Same with the other one. Bit of anti-seize on each end. And they're in, ready to go. Now, with in regards to your actual brakes, you'll probably find that you'll need to push the piston in. That's easy enough job. Just go up to your engine bay and open up your reservoir so you can let a bit of air out. You can use a G-clamp or something like that, or if you've got the proper tool you could use that, but just squeeze that in. We can put it back on here, put everything back together, and we're done. Just take it off. You don't need to take it right off, just to get some air in there. Okay, another thing we need to do is clean this off. so we can put some new silicone paste on it. Might as well while we're here. Let me just grab that. I reckon put a little bit on the actual, this stuff's gone a bit old too, so trouble getting it out. But I'm going to chuck a little bit in this hole just to help it, because I've noticed when you put this in, this will all, the rubber seal will just take it all off, so do that. Get some on there as well. You don't need to go overboard, just enough to sort of lube it up a bit. All we've got to do now is get this piston back in. Like I said, if you've got the appropriate tool, the proper tool to do it, that's great. I'm just going to show you how to do it without the proper tools. So basically I've got a G-clamp, and I'm just going to slot in here to push the piston back, but there's a hole in the end of the piston, so what I've actually done, I'll just grab a spanner and put it across there like that. It'll give us something to get into, and we can just tighten it down. And with a bit of luck, it'll draw that piston in, take it right back, right in. See if I can, you might be able to see it there. And that's it. You should, in theory, be able to just push that straight on. Get the spinner out of there. Okay, let's have a look. Right. Looks like we're back on with that. No worries. Let's check for any bindage of seals, anything that's getting caught up. So we've got our bolt all nice and clean, so we can chuck that back in. Actually, what I forgot to do is put some Loctite on there. I'm going to put some Loctite on there, but not quite as much as what they did. Righto. All you really need. I'll leave a bit of a description down below on your torque specs and all that sort of stuff, and all the tools that are required to do this job anyway. So, but we're just tightening stuff down, make sure everything's put back together properly, nice and clean, everything moves freely, and we can put the wheel back together. Okay, so before we actually put our wheel back onto our new rotor, it's a really good idea to get rid of all this, well, there's not that much rust here, but just to clean this up a bit. So we'll get stuck into that. I'm just going to use a wire brush and some sandpaper, nothing too fancy, so let's get stuck into that. Still a tiny bit there. The rest of it's pretty smooth though. But we just get this little bit off and we'll be right. Alright, so I reckon that's good enough. Just give it a bit of a clean off now with some brake clean and a rag. And it's ready to go back on the car. Well guys, there's the finished product. It looks absolutely amazing if you ask me. Huge improvement on what we had before. Like I said before, I didn't actually have to do this. The rotors and the brake pads were actually in really good nick, but I wanted to give the car a bit of bling, so to speak, and hopefully add a bit of performance to it. So let's go check the other side out. There we go, look at that. All I'd do is get my wheels put on the right way. That'd be a good start too. But anyway, one more thing before I go is don't forget to tighten down your brake reservoir cap. And to give your brakes a pump before you go anywhere, because they will go to the ground on you. Alright guys, that about wraps it up. All you've got to do is put your wheel back on and go for a drive. So don't forget those few little points before you do take it for a drive. Just make sure you've got a brake pedal, make sure that reservoir cap is back on and everything is tightened down. You should be right to go. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing and let us know down below any ideas on videos you'd like me to do. That would be great. Anyway, take care. JayFix.